Thanks, Mom. So, guys, thanks for coming out today. We are fortunate enough to have Industrial Cigar out here with us. If you guys don't know, they are the best cigar lounge in the country and just a little bit south of here. And so we are very fortunate to have them and the rare knowledge that they have. These guys know cigars like we know whiskey. And it's very, very good for us to be able to pair up together and kind of compare notes. And we're very fortunate to have them. And we just want to thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
No, the families should be together. We have a whole mafia thing getting ready to start.
Yeah, no,
get the families together.
I can't get out now then. Is what you're saying.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Well, they asked us to do a pairing with cigars and whiskey. And I thought it would be good if we had two different perspectives, one from the whiskey maker side and one from the cigar side. And so we're both going to be up here and we're going to kind of go back and forth with how we think things should be paired. I wanted to start out with whiskey pairing in general. So a lot of times when we start talking about pairing flavors with whiskey, there's two main ways you do that. You either do things that are very similar or things that are going to be opposite. And so if we're making something that is more of a cigar blend and we want to do something that pairs very similar to it, I don't want the whiskey to taste exactly like a cigar. So we do kind of a little shuffle move and we start looking for tangential flavors, things that remind us of a cigar but aren't very specifically just a cigar flavor. That might not be the best thing to be drinking. And so a lot of things we're going to be looking for. I like the Spanish cedar kind of notes that we'll find in our barrels a lot of times. There's certain fruit notes that I'll be looking for if we're actually going to be making a blend for it. A lot of times with whiskey, what we have to have is we have to have enough flavor density in the spirit, because if you pick a really heavy duty cigar and it kind of overpowers that whiskey, you're not really pairing. You're just drinking whiskey and enjoying a cigar at the same time. So what we like to do is I actually like a little bit higher proof when I'm pairing with a cigar. So that's what we have today that we're going to kind of be pairing with this as kind of your everyday drinker to pair with a cigar. We've brought out Promethean. And the reason I like Promethean is because it covers a lot of range of cigars. Now, it won't pair with every cigar, but more than likely Promethean does a good job. Also in our lineup, you've got Icarus. That seems to be a favorite that everybody likes to pair with. When you start putting port finishes with things, they tend to do pretty well. And of course, Cigar Blend, which we released earlier this year. That one was intentionally meant to be paired with cigars. But a lot of times, like I said, we're looking for tangential flavors. One thing I do like to have when I'm picking out my fruit notes when I'm blending is to have enough fruit acidity in there, because otherwise your fruit will get lost real fast when you start smoking a cigar.
Mm-hmm. So from a cigar perspective, by the way, none of this is rehearsed. So this is what's going to be amazing about today. Is we
I have
compared
no idea
notes.
what he's about to say.
We compared notes. Yeah, we have no clue. When pairing cigars with spirits or pairing cigars with anything, whether it's wine or whatever the case may be, what we look for is that the cigar complements and accentuates the spirit or the wine or whatever the case may be. So for us, there's that process. Now, what you hear when you hear Robert talk about fruit notes and cedar notes and some of these various notes that come out. I'm sorry, what?
I'm the other one, but that's all right.
Which one's the nice one? This guy. I'm sorry I called you wrong.
That's
hey,
all right.
We saw a fight last night with a 58-year-old guy and a 28-year-old guy. Me and him are ready to go. 63 and probably 26. I don't know.
You're my new favorite person, by the way.
Put your money on the new guy. Yeah. So whatever this guy said, but when we talk about pairing cigars and we talk about what we want to accomplish when pairing a cigar, is we want to accentuate those notes that he's talking about. And a lot of times the important thing is he knows is the pH level. Everything is pH, right? So you're either talking contrasting or comparable pH levels. That's why cigars and coffee go together so well, because they both kind of sit in this 8.0, 8.2 pH level. They both kind of live in that area. Spirits have a tendency to kind of be in a different range. So you want to try to fine tune something and get close, but it's purely experimental. And the good part is it's a fun experiment, right? Oh, damn, I got to drink another drink to see if this works. I got to buy another cigar. So, but
fire?
What we try to do is go through the process and really get you to focus on what you're going to do. And that would be, in the case of what I would call a spirit forward pairing, is I would sip, then take a puff and sip. But the key is by going into that with the first sip, concentrate on the notes, close your eyes, concentrate on what's happening. Try to get that through your nose. We all know the importance of the olfactory sensors. We don't taste with our tongue. We experience with our tongue. We taste through our sinuses. And what you want to do is concentrate where did it hit your impact? Is there a note or two or three that remind you of something? And here's the thing. He may say, I'm getting this this dried cranberry. Okay, if you taste something and you get this, okay, I'm kind of getting the fruit thing, but I'm kind of feeling a cherry. Go with that. It's whatever. The whole idea of this process, I use this example all the time when we talk about pairings and we talk about flavors, and these people come to us and go, how do I get the notes out of the cigar that I keep reading about in these magazines? Look, the bottom line is if your mom gave you an orange your entire life but didn't tell you what it was, you know the flavor until someday somebody says, that's an orange. And you go, oh, orange connects to that flavor, that citrus, that impact, that note, that flavor. When you taste something in a cigar, because of how it's blended, maybe from the country of origin the tobacco comes from, it'll create a unique flavor. If that comes into you and that's cedar, or if that comes into you and that's burning oak leaves, whatever that is, just trust that, because that's your mind, and that scent is your sense will remind you of your oldest memories. So it's the walking through, it's raking yards, it's cutting grass, all those things that we do, you can pick up those subtle notes. But what you really want to do is find a cigar that once it pairs closely, the sip, concentrate, the puff, and then sip again. What should happen when you know that you're getting close is the tobacco has kind of countered that flavor of whiskey, right? Or that flavor of bourbon, right? It offsets that, it negates it to bring the flavors that you have searched for to the forefront. And if you get this, oh my God, that's honey, and you get those things, that's when you know that you found a cigar that pairs really well with the various notes that you're trying to perform. That's
perfect.
That's as close as I can get to trying to tell you what you're tasting.
We talk about that a lot when I'm trying to explain to my team on blending and talking about flavors. And so if I say this tastes like apple, you and I have probably very different apple memories. So right. You may be thinking about apple pie. I may be thinking about pulling fresh apples off a tree in an orchard. Obviously, those don't taste anything alike. So yeah, it does all go back to your own personal memory in a lot of ways. Apple pie moonshine, yeah, that too. I think a lot of it comes back to balance. Anytime we're talking about blending or whiskey, everything has to do with balance. If it's not in balance, you've got something that's way too spicy, or if you've got something that's way too floral, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. And so making sure that the whiskey balances with the cigar is what's really important with it. And so you can, if you have a whiskey that's way out of balance, and some bourbons, you guys know that they can get super floral, they can get super punchy and super in some aspects. Those are going to be a little bit harder to pair in general, unless you know that cigar hands down. And another thing, it's kind of, this is like the cheat code. If you're picking out a cigar, you can get the cigar, and if you have whiskey, you don't have to spend 30 minutes, an hour drinking the whiskey. You can pour a little bit. You guys don't have to pour 2 ounces every time. And you can sip that and you can be like, that doesn't pair well. You can get a different bottle. So it's a little bit harder on the cigar side, but unless you got just cigars like you guys got everywhere. There's a wide spectrum.
And this can be kind of a question and answer here, but there are a number of leaves that are particularly in wrapper and binder that some of the master blenders really look for something that's going to deliver some more acidity.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to us, when we're describing a cigar, is brightness.
Mm-hmm.
And that has a tendency to bring along some of the more floral notes and bring that forward. Now, how that impacts directly with the spirit is really in the end, what we're talking about is everybody is different. Everybody tastes things different. And so what my experience is, what your experience is, they could be totally different. What could pair really well, this and that, might not work for somebody else. The other thing is when we talk about cigars, that we always talk about the importance. A lot of people smoke cigars at night. So one of the things that we talk about is, what did you just eat? Because that's a big part of what goes into the biology of your bodies. If you eat tomato-based anything, salsas, spaghetti sauces, pastas, barbecue sauces, things like that, that acidity stays on your palate. So it's usually good to drink like a little sip of mineral water, take a bite of chocolate, eat some nuts, chocolate-covered cashews, things like that will kind of become a natural palate cleanser. So when you invest into a bottle like this, or you invest into some great cigars, prep your palate so that it's ready to go, so you can get the maximum enjoyment out of it. That's going to be your best chance for a successful pairing too.
That's true on the whiskey side too. If you're just, anytime you guys are drinking something, if it's late in the day, you got to pay attention to what you've had all day long. And we talk about palate fatigue a lot on the whiskey side. If you've got something that you're trying to use your palate with a cigar, you're trying to use it with a whiskey, you're going to get palate fatigue with that. Normally, if I do have whiskey and a cigar, I normally have water with me as well.
For sure.
Kind of wash everything down and kind of keep everything as clean as possible when I'm doing that.
Yeah. So I think just from a general conversation point, to keep things where the focal point is the spirit and the performance of the spirit combined with your cigar, I would do a sip, puff, sip. If you're trying to pair a cigar, then you might focus more on puff, sip, puff, so that you can see how your favorite spirit impacts the particular cigars you're smoking. But it's your preference of how you do it. But the key is concentration on all three steps, and just make sure that you're trying to identify what happened by the time you get to that. I've sipped it, I've smoked it, I've sipped it again. Now what happens? There are some certain coffees that we've had with certain cigars that you literally don't taste the coffee. It's all these background notes come screaming to the front. And that's really some of the things that you work hard to try to get those subtle notes to find their way to the surface. That's where some of the correct pairings will work. Yeah. But we're talking about human biology, we're talking about food, we're talking about pH, we talk about all these different things, your environment that you're in. But when you find that magic, man, it's nothing better.
When we talk about blending and we talk about pairings, a lot of times everybody wants to think that 1 + 1 = 2, and that's rarely the case. Sometimes 1 + 1, you're back at 1, you didn't get anywhere. 1 + 1 could be 5 in this case. So like in this case right now, I'm paired with this Terra Nova with the Promethean, and there's marzipan notes in here that I don't find particularly very prevalent in the Promethean, but it's popping those out big to me right now. And
now that cigar is a Dominican cigar. It typically has a little bit of pepper on the side that you'll pick up. Does that accentuate that at all for you?
Considering Promethean already has some pepper to it, it's not really going out of bounds.
Okay, good.
So,
good.
Yeah. You want to take some questions from the
audience? Any questions? I mean, this is very it's so subjective. If look, here's the beauty of this. I don't drink, and I'm at this distillery, and I'm talking about how this stuff pairs. I can pair the hell out of it with chocolate cake and cheesecake. We actually blended a coffee that we used Mexican and Nicaraguan blended. Those two combined, for some reason, work with the majority of cigars, and we call it the ICC blend, and we use a little roaster in Aubrey that roasts them every week. But so for me, I'm kind of a coffee snob, and it is so coffee is one of those things that is very natural, like I said, because the pH levels are so close that with the right coffee, you start getting some really crazy flavors out of them, coconut and just crazy things that come out of the cigars. But I think that it is there's so many of the spirits, and again, we're very close with the guys with Some Would Say Whiskey, and of course love these guys here to be able to see people that are as passionate about their craft as the friends with Ironroot are. You know how much work goes into it. When we talk to the cigar manufacturers, they have that same desire. They want people to have something more than just the taste of tobacco. They put their heart and soul into it. Mm-hmm. And trust me, there are bad blenders out there that put together, they use perfectly good tobacco and they make perfectly horrible cigars. Yeah. And we curate our floor. So we test all the cigars before they get on our floor. And if it's not unanimous with 14 people, we don't put it on the floor. But when you have branding or when you have all these incredible brands that want to deliver something unique and special, that's where, for the big part, the education element of it is important. But it's this is a very subjective thing, so it's probably more about how to do it so that you can have your own experience, I think is the key.
Here. Yeah.
So, medium blended fruit, does it matter the fruit when you're trying to pair like each other with tea?
You can. And so that's one of the things with Icor. I was calling that a cigar blend. I did actually paired that with Atabay cigar and actually enjoyed it to where I might have had too many glasses while I was enjoying that cigar. It was a good pairing that day. But yeah, you can pair higher. Sometimes the alcohol will get a little aggressive with the heat. And that's all part of the pairing experience with it. And so some of us are a little more acclimated to 140 proof. It may not bug quite as much. If you're somebody who doesn't drink over 100 usually, the 140 is probably going to not pair well with a cigar as much as that 140 might not pair as well with your palate in general. So.
Yeah, I would think the heat aspect, and it would become even more important for those of you here earlier, the importance of a very slow pull so that you keep the smoke as cool as possible. It's particularly important when you get towards the end of a cigar when the oils really heat up in the cigar and they become bitter. Slow down, slow down, slow down. So I would imagine with a high proof, where you have this kind of natural heat going on, you definitely don't want to huff and puff on the cigar to get that smoke in there hot as well. That I could see where that would throw off the whole experience.
Your tongue pretty quick.
For sure. Yep. For sure. Now, do you guys talk about the importance of pushing the aroma through your nose?
Yeah, and I actually taste very differently than some blenders. So some blenders that they will just nose for say 15 minutes, just spend all their time nosing. I'll actually take a little sip early on, swallow that, but what ends up happening is then I'll go to nosing, and I'm actually using both my nose and retronasal in order to do it. And so I do that because I like to taste in stereo.
Well. So do you refer to it as
retronasal?
Okay, retronasal. We call it retrohale, but that's how we test cigars. We test our cigars to try to keep smoke as cool as possible. One way to accomplish that, and this is a way that you guys can all do this if you want. If you actually take a cigar, I did a significant pull there, but you kind of get this quarter size hot spot right on the front of your palate, right? So what I really want to do is accomplish cool smoke. So one way to do that is this: you're smoking it up. You literally don't feel the smoke in your mouth because it's gone to the roof of your mouth and it's cooled down by the time it's come to your palate. Particularly when you get to the end of a cigar, that really comes in handy. But when you smoke it up, then the smoke is cool enough to retrohale through your nose. and there's no burn, there's no nothing because it's cool. If you do it with a hot mouth of smoke, it'll light your sinuses up. But that's a good way, and from a pairing perspective, that's where I challenge you guys: retrohale and get those subtle notes on your olfactory sensors versus the impact on your palate, and then do the same thing with that. And I think that would even enhance that whole pairing experience even more. And that's kind of lousy homework, isn't it? You guys are sorry. You're gonna have to go home and drink a bunch, have some cigars, drink even more. And then just tell your wife you're pairing. You know, we're just doing pairing, honey. Any other questions? Not really. I mean, a punch can be more pinpointed. It could direct the smoke directly in a tighter area, kind of hitting your mouth with a laser instead of just a wider opening. I'm not a huge fan of the punch because of the way that it funnels the oils of the tobacco to the cap. It'll coagulate at the top, and if you ever taste the oil, it's horribly bitter. V cuts, it does create more turbulent smoke, and that turbulent smoke, one could say, would be cooler, but I just think they just finally got tired of selling straight cutters, and they went with a V cutter too. So we can sell you 2 cutters now. But if somebody can tell me they can taste the difference between a V cutter and a straight cutter, come work for us, because you're at a level that we didn't have yet.
The next thing is, we talked about wrappers and whatnot, Candela wrappers, green wrapper. I like the Candela wrapper, but I can't even tell you what kind of flavor profile it actually puts off to no.
And that's the thing, Candela doesn't. The Candela wrapper is, as Brandon was talking about, when the leaves are hanging in the curing barns, it goes from green to light brown to brown, and they pull it off. But a lot of times with a Candela, what they're doing is they're pulling it down while it's still green. So it hasn't, and then the fermentation process is faster. So it doesn't actually have a chance to start really changing color. But a lot of manufacturers use a Candela wrapper. They're typically a thinner wrapper, but it's perfect for a mild cigar because it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't have flavor like if you smoked a Habano wrapper or some of the other wrappers that are available in the market. Candela is natural. I mean, if you find a Candela that has a Candela wrapped cigar that has flavor, it's pretty rare. And there are a couple, but you don't see it. You don't really see it a lot. Yeah, he does a little bit, but as something from a sales perspective, Candela just doesn't sell a lot. If you want the most mild cigar you can, that would be it. Are you getting in trouble? Your mom's yelling at you out the window.
Back to the Liquors household. Yeah.
Street lights are on.
I grew up in the 80s. I know what that is. Yeah, I got to go.
The bar is closing.
Yeah.
Lights are coming on.
Well, thank you guys. That's
Thanks.
fantastic.
Good.
job. All right. All right.
do
I'm
our
gonna
show?
take this.